let's talk about sync. Okay. Right now, I've gone back to the preset I've been using, which is P01. Just a sawtooth. Okay, so we're going to talk about sync, right? Okay, as I've told you a million times in other videos, but I'll tell you again in this video, the sync effect is what happens when you force an oscillator to restart its waveform every time a different oscillator restarts its waveform. And just as long as they both have the same frequency, you're not going to notice a whole lot of difference. Okay, so let's turn on oscillator 2. These are just sawtooth waves, if I remember correctly. Here, let me make the board reflect what's happening. So we can at least see what we're doing. Turn this down, turn that up, turn that up. Okay, we have two oscillators set to sawtooth wave. Now I'm going to go down here to the sync section. Okay, yeah, it's just one button. You just turn it on, which is so misleading. Like so many aspects of this synthesizer, it just looks so tiny and humble. Like when you turn this on, a thing will happen. When you turn it off, that thing will stop. Well, that's technically true, but there's a whole lot more going on because it actually makes a different section full of knobs behave differently, and that's how you control it. Okay, so we'll turn sync on. What this is saying is now, and this is the opposite of some other synthesizers, now VCO1 is a slave to VCO2. VCO1's wave shape is forced to reset every time VCO2's wave shape resets. So every time the saw goes up and comes back down, the saw is going to go up and come back down at the same start and end point. Okay, so let's hear it. Hey, Mark, that sounds exactly, or at least that doesn't sound particularly different or strange. It does sound different. But yeah, it's because they currently have the same frequency. But as I say in all of the videos, the minute you start messing with frequency, you're actually forcing this poor oscillator to restart its wave shape, even though it's playing a completely different frequency. And of course, the waves restart. When the waves restart defines the frequency. How many times a thing wiggles back and forth is the frequency. So if it's being forced to restart its wave at times that are different than its own frequency, it's going to make a weird effect. So here. So we can hear it doing the strange sync effect that we're so used to hearing. Now, of course, then the question becomes, okay, how do we make that sound happen so we don't have to sit here and turn the knob? Okay, I'm going to turn down oscillator 2 because we don't need to hear oscillator 2 to hear this effect. And there's something I need to point out. Okay, that's what it sounds like when we're using sawtooth. But keep in mind that all of these different wave shapes are going to sound different when you do this particular effect to them. So even just turning on the ultra saw makes it sound different. So there are now different frequencies involved because the ultra saw is on. And we can do that with the square too. This is going to sound different. It's more overt. So each one of these wave shapes is going to give you a different sync sound. And that's important because the sync sound is really cool, but also it gives you just an infinite breadth of timbre in a section that already had an infinite breadth of timbre. All of these different wave shapes sound very different when forced to submit to the sync effect. Well, Metalizer sounds totally bizarre. And we'll hear these all again in a moment when we start to actually modulate this, so I don't have to keep turning this knob back and forth. Okay, so we're just showing you that with the sync effect, where oscillator 1 is forced to restart every time oscillator 2's wave shape restarts, when we change the frequency, we get this effect that we're looking for, and it creates really unique and interesting timbres. So what are the ways that we can inspire this timbral revolution to occur without having to sit and turn the coarse knob? I mean, you could do something so simple as use your mod wheel. So let's go into the modulation section. We'll apply the mod wheel to VCO1's pitch, and we'll jack that up there, and then let's back that off to about halfway. Ooh, listen, at that particular point, we're getting just this little tone. And that's another thing to point out. Like, you don't always have to modulate this in a way to get the sound from Let's Go by the Cars. You can leave it where it is and be happy with the timbre that is being generated. Because it's cool. Or you can modulate like crazy, like I'm about to. Listen to how digital this is. The metalizer sounds really, really good when it is forced to sync. Wow. Okay, so yeah, there's a lot going on. We just use the mod wheel, but of course we can use LFO. Wow. That's only one oscillator we're hearing. We could also bring oscillator 2 back in. I don't know about you, but I'm delighted by that. That is a really cool sound. And that's the sort of thing we can expect when we're dealing with a synthesizer with this much functionality and this much modulation capability. Let's also try the good old standby, the envelope. I'm using envelope 3. And of course you can use the waveforms in tandem at the same time. So then you have a complex waveform that is being forced to restart. Really, really cool noises. And so that's one of the reasons why this thing can be so easily overlooked is just pressing one button is leading us to the opportunity for all these cool sounds. We're not even using the filter. Just imagine now if we started to mix the filter in with this sort of thing. I mean, let's... Yeah. And we can go on and on and on. And let's be clear here that, we obviously can do combinations of various things. Ooh, that's pretty cool. Not sure why that's happening that way, but that's really interesting. That's the LFO. Oh, that's why it's LFO3. Let's stick with LFO1. We haven't talked about LFO3 yet. So now I have both LFO and envelope controlling the frequency of VCO1, which is making the sync effect result in the timbres we're hearing, as well as it's also going through the filter and coming up with cool things there. But yeah, we can add a number of things. We can, here's a really cool one. We can definitely add Aftertouch, and we can control the effect from Aftertouch. So I'm pressing the key and then pushing it down deeper. We can also do velocity. That should be fun. Here, let's bring this in. Anyway, so yeah, we're getting all kinds of weird stuff going on there, but that is just, again, scratching the surface. We haven't talked about the macro knobs yet, but macro knobs are great for controlling the sync effect, because you can make precise decisions about pitch using numbers. We'll see that when we talk about the macro knobs, or if we haven't already. Time gets weird with me. Okay, so that is the sync effect, and I haven't, again, even scratched the surface of the possibilities. I just thought of something we have to do. So what happens? Let's take off velocity, because I think we're going to... What happens now? Okay, so we have VCO1. Oh, this is still going. This is probably over. We have VCO1 is being forced to restart its wave shape every time VCO2 restarts its wave shape. So what happens now if we modulate VCO1 with VCO2? I mean, with this VCO3. So you can use the sync in tandem with these audio rate modulations. And get some really, why does that sound like a DX7? It's because DX7s are born of frequency modulation, and what we're doing is frequency modulation right here. Not the synthesis style, but kind of the same thing that the synthesis style does. That's interesting. Modulating VCO2 with VCO1, while VCO1's being forced to restart its wave shape by VCO2, results in kind of this weird pitch shifting. Interesting. But yes, there's a huge amount of experimentation you can do. You can do more things with this particular effect with this synthesizer, because there are so many more options. You can do the things that I often talk about, which is using the sync effect as an attack transient, a bright harmonic rich sound that happens at the beginning of a sound, much like so many things that you hit that sound bright and jangly at first and then get darker with less harmonics. You can simulate that without using a filter, just by using the sync effect controlled by an envelope at the beginning of a sound. Okay, so yes, that is the sync on the Arturia MatrixBrute.